All right, so let's call the meeting to order. And first order of business, election of officers. Can council members be officers or just the citizens? Yeah.
Your council members can be officers, yes.
Okay. So do we have anything other than president?
President, vice president, and secretary. The secretary does not have to be a director, so
Okay.
you may appoint me as
You're the secretary, so we need nominations for president. I've had luckily for 2 years, so it's time for someone else. You know, it's not a hard job.
Well,
Open the floor
Don,
No, I don't want,
Ron,
I have too much on my plate, I can't really do it. I mean, even though the meeting's only like once a year, it just adds too much. And my brain can only take 3 or 4 topics at a time. So,
Harry, would you accept the presidency?
I would, but I would love for,
I have no problem, you know, if we want
I
to
would
continue
love-
on for one more year. It's easy.
Wonderful.
well,
So,
I would love.
I was going to get ours, but evidently she's not feeling too well, so.
No.
But
But thank you, I defer to you if you,
it's fine with me. I have no problem with it.
I make a motion to reappoint Ron Shields as president.
I second
All in favor?
it. All right.
I,
We need a vice president.
I probably would not consider Iris in this. I don't,
Okay.
I'm not sure what the prognosis is on her. She's been ill for a while, and I'm just not sure.
Great. So who's the vice president this year, Kim?
I don't think we have one. I think it's always just been the president.
Yeah, I didn't remember us ever doing a vice president
you
before.
know, we always just had president.
Yeah. I think
So as hard as the load is, you know, do we need a vice president?
You don't. It is, it's all.
As long as you
authorized
promise
by
to show up.
statute,
Unless providentially hindered, I will be here again next year.
Okay.
All right, so with general consent, we're not going to elect vice president? Okay.
Be my feeling.
Then we need to consider the minutes of the board meeting from the last year, May 30th, 2013. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review, and if they're like me, they certainly didn't remember that far back. But have you seen anything obvious that needed to be discussed?
Move to approve.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Kim, who do we need to talk to on the audit?
Just Ms. Jewell.
Ms. Jewell? Okay.
If I can refer you to your comprehensive annual financial report, you either received a book or an excerpt from it. If you would turn to page 1. Again, I'm Janina Jewell, I'm the Director of Finance for the city. In accordance with Local Government Code 363, the CCPD board must have an annual audit made of the financial condition of the district by an independent auditor. Our external independent auditors, Weaver LLP, conducted an audit and issued an unqualified opinion, which you'll see on that page 1 of your comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year 2013. This is the highest level of assurance that they can provide. If you would now flip to page 75, which if you have the excerpt, it's just the last page. You can see in that third column that's named actual GAAP basis, that's generally accepted accounting practices, that during the fiscal year of 2013, the CCPD collected $1,997,417 in total revenues, which included sales tax revenue, sale of fixed assets, and interest earnings. Expenditures for the year included baseline expenses of $1,797,824, which is made up of salaries, benefits, and crime prevention supplies. In addition, $93,000 was spent on capital items. This included mainly the expenses for the radio lease. This resulted in a net ending fund balance for fiscal year 2013 of $604,663, which is actually $214,828 more than the original 2013 budget, as shown in the fourth column of this audit report. You see that variance. This was achieved by increases in sales tax revenues during the fiscal year. This time, I invite any questions that you may have and seek your acceptance of this report.
Good report.
Super.
Mhm.
Very good.
I make a motion to approve,
I'll
accept.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Kim is going to go over the budget for this year. Ms. Jewell? Okay.
You will. And I'll ask you to pull out this other packet that you have, the Crime Control and Prevention District proposed budget.
Jewell, are we going to go over that before we open the public hearing?
If you, normally we go over it, and then you, I guess, if you want to open the public hearing, then I can go over it, and then you can seek comments.
So let's open the public hearing. We'll get your presentation, then open it for questions.
Very good.
Okay.
You'll turn to the first report in your packet. Column 1 of this report is the actual revenues and expenses for fiscal year 2013. And column 2 is the adopted 2014 budget. In the third column, you'll see how staff expects to end fiscal year 2014. And column 4 is the proposed 2015 budget. We are projecting total revenues for 2014 to end the year at $2,119,743, which is an increase of $149,941 over our original budgeted estimates for this fiscal year. We did not factor in any savings and expenditures since expenses seem to be in line with our budget appropriations from last year. Any savings realized would just increase the value, the funds available in the fund balance going into 2015. Based on these projections, the CCPD fund will end fiscal year 2014 with a fund balance of $504,367, which is approximately $150,000 more than originally budgeted due to that increase in revenues. The fourth column on this first page reflects the proposed 2015 budget. For 2015, revenues are projected at $2,183,294, which includes both sales tax revenues and interest earnings. The projected revenues are based on a 3% increase in sales tax receipts and no significant change in interest income. Although we are budgeting sales tax revenues to increase 3%, this does represent an increase of almost 11% over the current year's budget. On the expense side, operating expenditures are projected to be at $2,104,109, which includes $1,924,609 for salaries and benefits. This includes a modest pay plan and 18 positions. This is an increase of 1 position from the current year. This is not an increase in workforce. This is a transfer of a police officer position from the general fund to the CCPD fund. These 18 positions include the assistant police chief, 2 senior police corporals, 7 senior police officers, and 8 police officers. $88,500 is proposed for operations. This is an increase of $67 from the current year, but you will see that this is due to a decrease in special services where we have previously budgeted for the Crime Victims Liaison, which has continued to receive funding from grants. So we've factored that out for next year. But it does show an increase in training because of last year's adoption of the supplemental or ongoing program for the expenses of the regional tactical SWAT team training. You'll see that that $16,500 was approved supplemental. It just moved up from last year's supplemental section up into the actual operations for this current year. You'll also see that radio system expenses are increasing next year, and this leaves the CCPD fund with a fund balance of $583,552. Also in that far right column at the very bottom of the page, there's a few of the items that the police department requested for fiscal year 2015 that the city manager is recommending be funded by CCPD. The other items that they requested will be presented later this evening to the city council for consideration in appropriations from other funds. Chief Brown will be able to describe these requests in just a moment, but right now I'll summarize the city manager's recommendations for the number purposes. There is one recommended supplemental item, which means it would be approved, if approved this year, would continue to be worked into future year budgets. Just like we were talking about the SWAT team, that $16,500 would move up into ongoing. This item would, if appropriated, would have the same effect in future years. And that's for that $33,520 for the mental health, mental retardation liaison. Since this is an ongoing expense, we would only fund, you can only fund those programs by operating revenues, and you'll see we have excess revenues over expenditures of $79,185 projected for next year, so that would easily cover this expense. Capital or one-time items recommended for 2015, see total of $185,705. This includes continuation of the part-time detention PSO program, police equipment, and part-time dispatchers. After adding these recommendations, the budget, if approved, would leave an ending fund balance of $364,327, which is almost $13,000 more than the board's elected reserve level of $351,391, or 60 days worth of operating expenses. If you turn to the next page, page 2, this report provides you with budget to actual comparisons for this fiscal year that we're currently in. And you'll see that revenues are exceeding the budget and expenditures are in line with budget appropriations. At this time, if you've got any questions for me, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Chief Brown to summarize his areas, the capital and supplemental requests. And I'll pass out those Form 3s if you can take one and pass them down.
Okay. First one is our part-time PSO program. That's a continuation of a program that we have had for many years. And we hire about 10 part-time employees to come in there and help us in the jail. They augment our staff, our full-time staff. It allows us to cut down on overtime. And also, for us, it's kind of a proving ground for those young people who come in, work part-time. They want to continue to go to school, but also want to look at law enforcement as a career. We bring them in, they work in there, and they learn basically how the jail operates. They get to be around people that probably they've never been around before, and to see if that's really what their future holds for them. And it's been a very successful program for us. And as we have turnover in the full-time PSO ranks, then we already have some people that are trained and ready to move up and become full-time employees, and that just continues to pay benefit for us. Our PSO program has really paid off over the years. Captain Landers started out as a public service officer. Tony Burnett did. We've had just scores of our officers go through that program and come out the other side just doing some great job. And we say a lot of that is due to this program right here. So we'd sure like to continue that.
The other thing this does for us is a large part of that jail population are ICE prisoners, which is immigrations and customs enforcement. Used to be immigration and naturalization, so I have trouble with monitoring that ICE. But they pay us to house their detainees. That is it's not even year by year, that is nearly a day by day situation of whether they will continue. The population fluctuates, and the other thing this allows us to do is to hold those folks without permanent employees. If ICE should go away, or at least that population, then it allows us to reduce our employment without having full-time employees in there. And it's, sometimes you'll see though, they may have 30 or 40 people in their day that are ICE prisoners, and it generates considerable revenue for the city, but it is a pretty risky revenue business that we actually done that since, I guess, the 80s. Years and years and years. As the federal political whim goes, so goes the population there.
Is that the reason we continue to carry it under capital expenditures rather than moving it up?
We don't want to get it into the baseline. On all of our budgets, and the council will hear this later in the meeting, but on all of our budgets, we try to keep the baseline as low as we can. There is no capital dollars in any of our budgets. And so we try to handle what truly are temporary or one-time expenses from any fund balance from the year before. That's the overall philosophy we've operated on for years.
Okay. Our part-time dispatchers, we just started that program, and again, that program is there to give us ability to bring in part-time workers and offset overtime. We find that it's harder and harder to find really good dispatchers. There's a lot of people out there who are dispatchers, but it's hard to find really good ones. So what we're able to do is we're able to go to neighboring departments, and if they're willing and their chief will allow them to, then they come over here, learn our processes, and we plug them in. It's a real quick turnaround as far as training them, and they plug in and go to work for us. Again, trying to alleviate some of our overtime dollars, and again, somewhat of a proving ground where we can recognize talent and they can see if they like us. So it's we started this last year. It took us about 6 months to get it up and going, and so we'll have about a full half a year on that program, and what we want to do is just continue that on next year. It seems to be paying dividends for us now.
So Chief, are these the people that answer the 911 calls?
Yes, sir. And if all it was answering 911 calls, I could do it. But
Sure.
because I can answer the phone, I can't write stuff down as fast as I used to.
Probably type very fast.
Yeah, exactly. So as I tell them, if there's one job in the whole house that I'll tell you I can't do, and that's dispatch. Started out as one, and there's no way I could keep it. Technology has long since surpassed us. But we get about 2,800 hours out of that money. So that's a lot of hours that we otherwise might be paying in overtime.
We have seem like we have a theme chief around. People starting to dispatch, working their way up and becoming leaders in our city.
Yeah.
Not necessarily good ones.
But
Say good. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
You're still back there on Lander starting out good.
I wasn't going there.
that program's yet to prove its useful. Any questions about that?
Where do
No.
I'm sorry, Gary, I was going to ask, where do you see that going? You see that program in the future getting rolled into the baseline, Gary, or do you feel like it's going to stay out of the baseline?
Well, I think we just have to evaluate it year to year. And part of that is whether there's room in our baseline, quite honestly. But,
Yeah.
but it's, you are seeing and you will continue to see increased use of part-time labor. I think you're seeing that nationally.
Exactly.
It is a good way to boost our manpower, and what you're not seeing on here, it's in the general fund, is he's also using part-time police officers, which is primarily retired police officers that are coming back and providing day-to-day assistance to allow the young guys to be out answering the calls. And they're doing the other stuff that is not so glamorous part of the job. So that's a strategy that we've used for several years, and I think you see that increase. So it's a very cost-effective way to do business.
Plus you're training your future workforce, hopefully.
Well, our next item is our patrol equipment, and what we propose to purchase out of that is we need to replace 8 ballistic vests for our SWAT team. Every police officer wears body armor, but these ballistic vests are much heavier duty, obviously have a greater stopping power than the ones that you'd wear under your shirt. These are external vests, and they have like all things, they have a life of about 5 years. And what we try to do is make sure that we budget to keep that on a revolving deal every 5 years. Every year we're replacing some, so we don't get to the end of 5 years and have to replace everything. So, we have some less lethal items that we use, and we need to pay for some training cartridges so that we get better at using the less lethal technology.
I kind of what that is. We've
Well-
got some new folks in here, but
Well, less lethal is I guess basically what you call tasers and our bean bags, shotgun bean bags that we use. Anything that's designed not to be lethal. It's not saying that they couldn't be, or they won't cause a death, but less lethal means that they were not designed to cause death. They're designed to stun, and incapacitate, to disorient until the officers can get in and get control of the situation of the individual. We would like to update and remodel our existing training room. When we built that building 12 years ago, that was some pretty good equipment that was in there, but as things changed, that stuff has gotten old, and we need to just remodel that whole room and get some equipment that's more relevant to the way people train today. Duty belt replacement, and what that is the gun rigs that we wear. As we continue to get new technology, they continue to hang that on our belt. And the belt gets to where it has become quite heavy and causes lower back issues in some of our officers. There's a company that devised a new belt that kind of takes the weight off of your hips and just kind of distributes it a little more evenly. And we felt that was a good investment for us to be able to make that option available to our officers. We beta tested about 10 of those with people with back problems, people without back problems, and we've yet to find anybody say, we don't like that. Everyone says, hey, it's great, the people with back problems like it, and the people that don't have back problems say it makes the day go by just a little bit easier, not carrying all that weight when you're lower back.
that's one of those things, we can save one back injury. It more than pays for the entirety of this list of stuff. It's just
Somebody loaded, what do those things weigh when they?
A fully loaded gun belt, probably about 10 pounds?
12 and a half, I believe.
Well,
It depends. The smaller you are, the lighter it is. Because you don't have as much room to put everything, so you have to figure out where else you put it.
and there's lots of technology, different techniques to do that. Some people try suspenders where they actually have to cut the uniform to get the suspenders to work. But this is just, you put the belt on, and it looks like a weightlifting belt goes underneath it that just kind of distributes all that weight. As one of them says, it just feels like that stuff's floating on you instead of being attached to your weighing train.
back to the training equipment for just a minute. You'll see there's lots of training goes on in the police and fire departments, and our effort on both those departments is to keep it here. To send those guys to travel to Austin or wherever the training may be offered is rather expensive. You've got the cost of the training, cost of their absence, plus their travel costs. And so that's some of the effort is to keep as much of it here as we possibly can, provide the equipment to allow that to occur.
So how, do we cooperate with the city of Fort Worth at all? The question is that we're doing a project right now. They're having police, fire, and training, which includes a mock shooting village, et cetera. Huge project that they're installing right now. I don't know if that's something that would be, we could cooperate on or not, but it is going in. Right now it's not finished, but it is going in.
I have not heard of that, but it's not unusual for us to train in Fort Worth or them to train with us, or we have, 14 cities in northeast Tarrant County. We all exchange training, set up our training calendar together so that we're able to maximize.
I don't have any context over it, but for general information, they're setting up, not just a firing range, but they're setting up actually a whole firing range that could set up, individual scenarios through anywhere throughout that space and an entire block village.
Oh.
So it's going to be very sophisticated.
That's good.
How about to be part of the police academy?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Police and fire academies all being built on the same site somewhere.
So Chief, I have a question for you. How do you dispose of this, or the equipment that you're replacing? How do you dispose of the old stuff, or do you donate it to a sister city or something?
Well, like the ballistic vest, things like that. Yes, there are ways that there are some departments that are so small that they will,
This is nice for them.
they'll use a vest that is maybe a year or two out of date, and then try to get some more of those, try not to push that too hard. Yes, we can make smaller departments. Those ballistic vests, I will imagine, will wind up at the police academy, where they will actually be worn by officers that are going through training, so that they'll get the feel of wearing the vest, and maybe not frontline use, but still use in training scenarios.
Well, they're warranted for 5 years by the manufacturer, so a lot of times departments don't want them because they don't want the liability that goes with that. So they get shot by our TAC team or the police academy, and that's one of the ways they get, not with somebody wearing it, but they get to shoot them to see exactly what the vest will do or whatnot. And then ultimately, if there's not somebody that we can donate them to like that or whatnot, then they get melted, they get burned. We don't want them to get out in the general public's hands somewhere down the road. So we take them and dispose of them.
Any further questions on that?
The supplemental, the mental health, mental retardation.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the okay.
What we are asking is, we're going in with, we'd like to go in with Bedford and First with a full-time mental health, mental retardation liaison person. We do that right now with the crime victim assistance liaison, and it's basically the same type of program, but what we're finding is that we are spending more and more of our time and our resources dealing with mental health issues on the street. It's not criminal to have mental issues, but what happens when it spills over to us is they have become a danger to themselves or someone else, and they don't know anyone else to call, so they call us. And what we have now is, we used to do what we call emergency committal, where you take someone from their home and you take them, or wherever they're at, to John Peter Smith Hospital. We do 1, 2 of those a month, and we're down to where we do maybe 1 a day. So it's very time consuming, and it really takes a lot of our resources to meet that need. And what we've found is that once we identify those people, if we can continue to have contact with those people and make sure that they're on the meds, and that they're not some type of crisis, or we can identify that they are, we can get to them before it gets to the point where we're being called, then we feel that it will pay dividends for us to intervene as quickly as possible. So Hearst, Bedford has the same issues we have, and basically they're at the same tipping point we are with the ability to actually deal with this issue. So we feel that if we can come together, fund one position between the 3 cities, that we can get a greater handle on that. Right now, we have a Tarrant County MHMR representative who services Hearst, Hughes, Bedford, Arlington, Grapevine, Colleyville. So you can see he's diluted, so his ability to help us is, the more that Arlington needs him, the less he can come to us. So what we want is our own, so that hopefully we can have a greater impact on that segment of our population. We have it down for a little over $33,000, and that is what we're asking for if we do not get grant. We've asked for grant funding. It's been kind of registered kind of high on the grant funding wish list, so maybe we will get some funding for that. But even if we don't, we feel that it's necessary and vital that we get that position to help us with those issues.
Chief, is this the full compensation package amount for that particular
Right.
person? Our
Right.
share of it would be this amount?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is this man an adult or is this the gamut?
It's the gamut. I think last night, I read 24, and there was a 15-year-old that we had to deal with that the youth pastor tried to intervene, and kid kicked the windows out of his car and jumped out while the car was moving. And it's just, it's from that to, 70-year-old people just depressed and don't know where else to turn. So, it runs everything. And some of them are violent, some of them aren't. I know the ones that kind of rise to your level where you get to deal with them is when we come in and Captain Anders talks about hoarding incidents. And, we really, I think this can give us some real help with those type of situations with hoarders and people that not only are unhealthy for themselves, but healthy for the neighborhood and the people that live around.
You probably all know someone in your life that deals with this, and they're not necessarily people that you see that you just would immediately identify as mental health patients. Some of them, it's just, they're pretty well off if they take their medication. And some of this effort is to go by and visit with them and make sure they're taking their medication.
And assist them if they don't,
Yeah.
if something's happened.
Before it becomes an emergency. Because that's, when they send someone to John Peter Smith, you might think, well, that's a 20-minute drive. Well, but there's a whole lot more goes into it. It's pretty much a day. So we're tying up police officers for the day, and more than one, we're tying two. So if we can avoid that, the fire department goes through the same thing on, they call them frequent flyers, on people that don't maintain their medications physically. And we spend an awful lot of time in our ambulance going and just, I know you talked with me about a program that's going on in the fire department right now, that's kind of the same thing, of just checking on them and making sure that they're taking their medications. That's a huge, huge need right now, and it's, you've not heard the end of this. This is a growth industry of mental health and physical needs. People that don't have support.
Chief, these are primarily residents, not homeless people.
Yes, usually they live in apartments. Now, some of them are homeless, but for the majority that we deal with are people that have a job, have a home, they just go into crisis, and someone has to deal with them. And we're the easiest number to call.
So do you normally send 2 police officers in a car to take a person over there?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's easy enough that we can just load them up and take them. Sometimes, not only are we gone, but the fire department has to transport them to John Peter Smith. So now you have a medic that's got them in the back of their ambulance, and then you have a police officer, maybe 2, that are on the way over there with them to help either sit in the back with them in the ambulance, or it can be as little as one, as many as, an ambulance crew and 2 or 3 officers. You just don't know. You never know till you get there.
The revolving door aspect of it is, that particularly those that respond well to medication, they get them medicated with John Peter Smith, and they go home. And within a few days or so, you deal with them again. So it's that taking that medication is good. And
You get those addresses turned in your memory, right? Probably.
Chief, question, a 2-part question. First of all, I know that, like Gary's already said, this is just tip of the iceberg, especially in this arena. Do you see that, obviously, I know you probably say yes, that area growing? And then secondly, I guess the result or something that could occur out of this, it would give your officers some more free time, that classic time that you keep trying to build
Right.
into your response time.
Right.
Where they can do community policing. So I guess that's your 2-pronged approach. What you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Until there's some, I guess, program somewhere that steps up and kind of fills that void, we're gonna continue to have to deal with that. Now, you can say, it's not our job, but until someone else comes along, no one else is gonna do it. So we need to make good decisions on how we use our manpower. And I think this program is one of those things where maybe, ounce prevention is worth pound a cure, or however that goes. And you just get out there and find them early with those people that we know about. And we go visit with them, we find them early, and we have this person dedicated to making those calls. We'll send a police officer with them. Every police department has, well, 3 cities have a liaison that works with them when they come to town now, and just give us a chance to spend a little more time with our frequent flyer.
Mike, do your officers ever get any training in how to identify the people that we hear on the national news where somebody's gone bonkers and they've gotten handguns or rifles and killed a bunch of people?
Well, we have what we call our mental health officer training, and every officer's been through that. It's a like 8-hour course, and there's a 40-hour course, and I think as we get this person on board, and he can provide that training, we can give more training to our people, especially when it comes to stopping things, just like what you said. We can hopefully identify and get some help and intervene quicker.
So this person would be the catalyst for someone.
Right. This person will be a licensed, I guess, social worker or, what do they call them?
Professional counselor.
Professional counselor, yeah.
The state has a program, done that for several years, it's just they've not been able to keep up with the growth. And it's, nobody, I've had some of this in my own family from years ago, it's my fault, but it's, my brother and my dad, I mean, it's one of the most frustrating things you can go through because there seems like there's no help. And nobody really realizes this is going on until it hits news with exactly what you're talking about. And well, why didn't somebody do something about it? Well, this is part of it. It's not the end all cure all, but it's a step in the right direction of trying to respond to it. It's a critical part of their operation. Strongly recommend. And he said there would be the potential for grant. If the grant should be funded, then this money right here would not be extended. But just
A portion of it would not.
whatever portion is not grant funded.
Excuse me, was the grant submitted on a 3-city
Right.
joint
Yes.
basis?
It was submitted by City First, and it was, I think, submitted to COG. COG's moved it, it's within the top 10, I think, on COG's list of things to be funded. So we hope, and it looks really promising, but you don't know if you have the money till they're giving you money, so.
We participate with Hurst and Bedford also on the Crime Victim Liaison, which is another critical program that we've done for years and years. Kathy Haker was our Crime Victim Liaison for a long time, but that's done cooperatively with 3 cities.
So one a day, I go back to if we do get grant funding, is there a possibility that we maybe institute a second person in this role with this funding? Is that a possibility? I'm sorry, the first person that you have already looking at,
Right.
with, it was grant funded,
Right.
then this
Well,
funds wouldn't be used,
It would be grant funded to a portion. That grant would not be 100%.
and that's what you're saying, right, couple of it, some of this money would be used in that portion.
Yeah, if it were to work well and when we get the grant, we might be back next year for another sheriff person, but we would not add another one this year.
One thing that Mike said earlier, you mentioned the Crime Victim Assistance Program and this program having some commonality, and I don't see it.
The commonality is that all 3 cities, First Hills, Bedford.
Oh, but it's
But
totally different.
exactly.
Okay.
And that's the SWAT team that he talked about, the funding for that, that is a joint, that's more than the three cities. For
Grapevine, Hurst,
the traffic, CD,
CD.
commercial vehicle, what else is it?
Crash unit.
crash
Yeah,
unit.
the child abduction response team.
Major
There-
case
there's
squad.
a flood of those projects that have gone for years. Drug task force. We couldn't do all that without the cooperative efforts of the cities.
So Chief, is the crime victim in the budget this year? I'm
Yes,
not
it is.
missing it.
That was a grant that we didn't know whether we were gonna get or not last year, so we came for our full third of that. The grant came through, and it was a 2-year grant. Every time the legislature meets, they either approve it or they don't. So appropriated for 2 years, so we don't have to worry about this year, but we might very well come back next year.
There's still a portion, the grants don't ever pay 100%, so there's still a portion that's funded under that,
Okay.
our funding.
I think that's our presentation.
Any questions from the council or from the public?
I guess the only question I have is the breakdown on the personnel and all that stuff. Is it just in your breakout or speech, or is it on documentation for the budget process? You know, when I looked at it online, there's no breakdown of how many of the personnel that are on the salary line and benefits and so forth. You said there's 18 total, but there's a breakdown of assistant police chief and all that. Is that available somewhere?
That's in the current year budget and will be in the proposed budget, the overall budget.
Yeah, but it's not a standalone, you can't break that out with this budget because that's where the money is appropriated.
It's not broken out. It's, can you is, I mean, obviously she got it, so yes, we could, but it's not broken out on this. It will be included as it always has been on the
Well, I would just like to get a copy of it to bring, you know, with my, so that when I document this online, people know what that salary line's all about, rather than wait for, what is it, the other budget's not completed until another 7-8 months, and this is a separate budget that you guys basically approved tonight, is it not? And accept.
We're asking for this board to approve it tonight, and I guess what are you asking for a copy of?
Well, I'd like just to break out on the personnel that's funded by the salary line on there.
Whatever we have.
Whatever
available.
Janine said earlier, that just an itemized list of those people.
Whatever we have is available. See, it's just not broken out on here.
Right, but I asked for it in advance, and they said it would be presented tonight, and I don't have a copy of it tonight, so I just... When I pulled up the budget online and looked at it and reviewed it, I asked through the secretary's office what the breakout on the personnel was. And then got a letter back that said it would be presented tonight. And I was just wondering what piece of paper has that on it, other than what...
Perhaps I misunderstood your request. I think your request was, what was the breakdown?
What is the breakout of the
Yeah.
people?
And will it be presented tonight? And it was presented.
But not in a written form so far. So I'm going to ask for it in writing tonight.
That's fine.
That's
That's fine.
basically what the breakout...
That's my misunderstanding, because my understanding was, what was the breakdown, or will it be presented tonight?
Well, I've got it in writing, you know, we got it on audio,
Yeah,
of course, but I would like...
It was presented, but if you need further detail of that, we'll have to provide it to you.
Yeah, I would like that, yes.
Ms. You'll be the first person to talk to.
Actually, that would go through.
Your campaign. Okay. So are there any other questions or comments? Anything from the guys on the wall? And ladies on the wall? Nothing to add? we need to have a motion to approve this budget for submittal to the city council, right? Okay. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Okay.
Chief Brown's a good budget, pretty thorough. Janine, I appreciate how you presented the response to the audit. That's always very helpful, and I appreciate that. And you do a great job in our finance department. Thank you.
Public hearing is now closed. Any other business to be transacted by this August body? Did make a comment that I did see you in the newspaper a while back.
Terrible picture.
Would you, just as a matter of information, would you like to share some light on that, how we got featured so prominently in that?
Well, basically, we got tricked. The Star Telegram called me and said they wanted to do an article about what a great thing it was that our seizure money had offset taxpayer dollars. But that was really not the article that was written, so.
Yeah, if I remember, the article that was written was by two CU State students saying this is unfair for this money to be taken without due process.
Right. But ours, and he tried to do a pretty good job of explaining ours was different than what he was explaining. Ours was actually a business that we had set up, and the bad guys came and bought products from us, and we seized all the money that they had spent on those products, went into a bank account, and we seized the bank account from, and all it contained was the dollars that they had spent buying illegal cigarettes and illegal tobacco products from us. And the person it was seized from was one of our lieutenants who had worked undercover with an alias name. And so we walked in, we seized the money, and the accounting of that was above board. It was audited all the way through the process by the federal prosecutor, our internal auditor here at the city, and the district attorney's auditor. So every penny was accounted for, and when it was seized by the district attorney's office. All funds turned over to him and dispersed from Tarrant County District Attorney's Office.
So how is that money treated in our budgeting? Is it off budget income, Gary?
Well, we got off budget, it's not general revenue, it's a special account that's specified, federal government, state government.
So they tell us what we could pay, what we could buy out of the account?
They give us categories.
Okay.
And the use of it in this case was primarily for a radio system, which was party required, and personnel.
Any other questions from any of the board members? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
So
Thank you.
Second? All in favor, stand up. Thank you.
Opposed?